Hi, Flosstube. It's Arlene here. It's Thursday, I was going to say June, July 29th, and I appreciate you being here. I know there are so many options to watch in Flosstube world these days, and so the fact that you've stopped by to visit with me for a little bit, I really appreciate it. Welcome if you are new, and if you have been around, thank you so much for coming back. I realized right when I opened up to get myself all started, I remembered. So if you didn't watch my last video, but you're here now and you've known me from before, I just recently moved. So this is only the second video I'm doing in my new space. And in the last video, I commented of, oh, I got to do something about this lighting situation. I have a skylight right there. I have an overhead light with a fan, like right there. I have my OT light, which used to work perfectly fine in my old space. I feel like, I think I said in the last one I need to get a ring light. I totally forgot about that. I think when this is done, I need to go order myself a ring light. Anyway, I said it was July 29th, and I just wanted to share a little, you know how dates could have importance? And, you know, certainly like anniversaries or birthdays or, you know, December 25th. This morning in a little, you know, whatever morning scroll, today on this day kind of listing, I saw today was the day that Charles and Diana, Prince Charles and Lady Diana, got married, 1981. And it just made me smile because I am very aware that that's the date that my family moved into our home in Connecticut, and the home I consider that I grew up in. Not where I was born, but where I grew up for the vast majority of my life. I can remember we were in a hotel room overnight. You know, they'd packed up our old house, they'd driven, but we were, because of the unpacking everything, we were in a hotel for one night. And I can remember either waking up or being woken up really, really early because this important wedding was on television. And that's just a way that I will always, because it happened on the wedding day, I'll always be able to honor this date, which was a very important beginning of, or it was the beginning of the important parts of my life were in that house. Anyway, I have a bunch of random things to go through today. It's been a few weeks since my last video, and one of the challenges I've been facing, it's not just now, it's happened other, I've got this books here that I have to move my hand off. 4 weeks from now, check the calendar, will be Needlework Expo. There was if you've been around, you remember me talking about this in the winter. Needlework Expo is a online wholesale opportunity for stores to purchase directly from designers. If you have heard for years of people talking about Nashville, Nashville happens in March. It is the in-person, everyone shows up, the designers show up with all copies of patterns, the stores show up with empty suitcases, and the idea is all the patterns get into the empty suitcases and the designers go home with empty cars. COVID, life, 2021, that did not happen in person in March, and instead, not sponsored by the people who do Nashville market, separately. Janice Note from the Noteworthy Needle took it upon herself to say, hey, we got to do something here. And so she initiated, created, is in charge of her thing, is the Needlework Expo, which was a great success back in March. She said, assuming it worked well, which it did, she had this vision of it being of it being an event that would happen in the fall, an online event, and then that balances with the in-person event that would happen in the spring. And that, I mean, what do I know? But that seems to make a whole lot of sense to me. She said, I guess some of you have been around, that there used to be 2 markets a year, a fall and a spring. And when that just turned into just March, is March spring? Yeah. I don't know. So anyway, we are going to be doing the second Needlework Expo the very last weekend in August. And so probably over the next few weeks, you probably have already started to see some sneak peeks. There will be more coming. I have not posted any sneak peeks yet as of the day I'm filming this. They'll be coming soon. I'm feeling pretty good about where my new designs are in, you know, I've got 2 that are finished an NFFO done, ready to do pictures and, finalize the patterns. And I have one that I'm finishing up, will be done in a few days. The other one is done and needs to get framed. So I'm feeling in a good place, and I need to just start working on making the pattern and all the info and everything. So I don't have stitching to show you because I'm keeping everything a little surprise. My plan is the next time you see me in a few weeks, it will be my big reveal. And so I've been for the last few weeks thinking, what can I do a Flosstube on if I'm not going to show current stitching? The other day, well, I'm going to get to that story in a minute, but I realized what I think would be a really interesting thing to talk about in a Flosstube and to show you. And so we're going to get to that. 2 quick things beforehand. Like I said, there will be new works by ABC Designs at the end of August, but I have a little special one that is coming out now. You will see links to this, to my Etsy store for this. It is a reproduction sampler. Katora, that's how I think I'm going to pronounce it, Katora Morris, 1808. And the story, if you know my work, you would think, really, she's doing a sampler? Well, like my stitching, I like to explore all kinds of things. And this sampler is owned by a woman named Linda. She is the great, 5 greats granddaughter of Katora. How special is it to own something that your own ancestor, your direct line, was the little girl who stitched this? I mean, I think that is so unique and special. Sometime back, late fall or so, she had posted in a few places looking to see if anyone could point her in a direction of getting it charted because she wanted to stitch it. And we got connected and started chatting, and I said, I would love to try to take this on. When she had it conserved, yes. The person who did the work took scanned, beautiful photos that, you could zoom in and see literally every fabric thread photos. So she was able to get me those photos, and I charted it from there. Like a lot of schoolgirl samplers, it has its little quirks that are just fun. You can see, no, you can't see very well, but she used a couple different greens in this winding vine. And it's almost like, all right, I'm using the dark green, but let me switch over to the light green, and maybe I don't have enough light green. Let me go back to the dark green, and there's no rhyme or reason. It just is what it is. And so some of those fun things are just, they were kept in here, and talking to Linda about how she wanted this reproduction charted. There are some specialty stitches. There's a lot of cross stitch. The words are all cross stitch and so on. There are eyelets. There are satin stitch. There are what I've called an elongated queen stitch. Instructions to do all of them are in here. So in talking with Linda, she said, well, I want to stitch it, but could we make it available if there's others? I'm very aware that many stitchers out there love to do reproduction samplers, and maybe this is something you might be interested in. So this pattern is available in my Etsy store now. Links below. You could get it as a hard copy that I'll mail to you, or as a PDF that you can do as an instant download, which is the same as all my patterns. And I hope some of you might be interested in looking at what Katora, I don't even know how to say her name, did. One of the things that I've been very excited about as I was working on this, it took me a number of months, unexpected move in the middle of all this. But also in the last few months, another project has come to surface related to reproduction samplers that I've started working on, and be sharing that with you a few months down the line. So if you are interested, go and check this out. The next little thing, not little, important thing, not quite stitch, well, there is a woman, a friend in my stitch group named Tonya. She's on a mission, and I'm hoping you all will help us. She works for ARC MID-HUDSON in New York. If you are unfamiliar, ARC, you will find ARCs in communities across the country. It's an agency that her agency supports over 1,800 adults and children with developmental disabilities ranging from mild to severe. And the work that agency does is so important. There is a local realtor company, local to her, that is having a contest. They want to give away a bunch of money to charities, and they have a little poll going. If you would be so kind as to help make ARC MID-HUDSON win this, it would mean a great deal for this extra bit of money that the agency could use. It is literally clicking a bubble on a Facebook poll. You do not need to put in your email address. You do not need to buy anything. Nothing. You just need to click a bubble on the poll. At the point that Tonya first started making her cheerleading efforts for this, I know ARC MID-HUDSON was in 8th place or so. It is now up to 2nd place. So we got to keep the momentum going here, folks. So the link will be below. Literally, all you need to go over. It'll open up. You click on ARC MID-HUDSON, and let's see what we can do to get the agency this extra bit of money. All the charities that are listed there, I am sure, are great, are wonderful. I'm sure they are all in need of money. This is every charity. But when you have a connection to somebody and someone that you know and love, and you do what you can to help out. So I told her, of course, I would mention this in my video. And I hope lots of you will just do that quick 30 seconds, not even 30 seconds. Thank you so much. Okay, the stitching to share with you. Like I said, my cross stitching that I've been doing recently, 1 black work and 3 cross stitches that will be released, Needlework Expo. And nothing stitching wise to show you. Earlier this week, I started something, and then this is what inspired me to do the video today. This is one of those videos where I literally have stuff all over, so there's going to be a lot of reaching back and forth. When I moved, like anybody, you unearth things that you kind of forgot that you had. And in my crafty needlework space, my studio, there was very little that I actually threw away or donated because I knew what was up here, but that doesn't mean that you don't find things that are oh yeah. And so from that, I have a little list of things that I was I really want to do that. When I say that, sure, a couple of them are just straightforward, I want to do this pattern. And then there's 2 or 3 that were sort of I bought that to give it a try. I got to remember to give it a try. And this is one of them. So this week I am somewhat participating in an online virtual conference, and I needed something that, no video, so I could stitch or do whatever. And I just realized, sure, I could stitch, but what else could I do? I mean, besides the cross stitch project that I'm working on, on a daily basis. And so I picked up one of those things on that list a number of years ago. I'm going to guess. No, I'm not going to guess. I know. It's 2015. I was in Iowa. I was actually in Iowa for a lace convention. But of course, you Google to see what kind of needlework stores are nearby. And I went to this place, and I meant to look up the name. Oh, wait, no. I'll put the link down below. What it looks like from their website now is looks like a complete needlepoint place. Canvases and threads. And if that's something you're interested in, go take a look. My memory of what it was 6 years ago was there's the needlepoint area. There's the cross stitch area. There's yarn for knitting. Here's an area with hardanger. Here's an area of blackwork. They had multiple techniques on display, and they were selling them. And this is something, it has different names. You see the name Huck Embroidery, Swedish Embroidery, Swedish Weaving. I think I first sort of became familiar with it, at least the words, the name, back Nordic Needle, which is still around sort of. They used to be bigger and different. There was a weekly newsletter that I love to read, and they would always be talking about different techniques. And so I think that's where it vaguely set in my mind. Anyway, I can picture there must have been a model, because this alone I wouldn't have. Okay, but there must have been a model of something that made me pick up, and this wasn't the only pattern they had, and I want to give this a try. Well, you know what happens? It gets put in a pile, and then you forget until you're packing everything up. So, a couple of YouTube videos. It didn't take that much. I did not have the material that this is usually stitched on is called monk's cloth. I tried a quick Google of where did that name come from. Of course, there seems to be some suggestion that it was somewhat related to the fabric that were used to make monks' robes. Who knows how clear that history is. It is a very distinct fabric. It's like 7 count, 10 count. It's a very big count, and it's a little different. You can Google it if you want to see it. But the fact that this said Ada meant, well, you don't need that fabric to do it. And when I watched a couple of, they weren't long videos to see what you're supposed to do. It's like, I see why the monk's cloth is the best kind of cloth, but you don't need it. So I wasn't going to invest a whole lot in this project. I found a scrap of fabric. This is Devosa. It's a very, soft and, what do you call it? When it does that. And this is the beginning of, like if you look at the green one, it's just one, that's as far as I'm going to go. I'm not doing that, I'm not doing that big thing in the background. So just one of those little things. And so you can see I've got the bottom going there. So here's what the back looks like. But I believe if I was using monk's cloth, you literally wouldn't see anything behind the back just because of the way the fabric threads go. It's just doing something different. I hope I finish this off. It'll be something I'll have around for things like tuning into a Zoom lecture or something. I just like doing things or trying out something that I hadn't tried before. And that's what came of this, and it's been a lovely thing to work on this week. But it got me thinking. Because I like to try different things, I know at various times I've talked about the different kinds of needlework that I love. Why not do a quick little tour de needlework of the different things? I use, if anyone picks up on this, I tend to use the word needlework and needleworker instead of cross-stitch or cross-stitcher. I do a lot of cross-stitch, but when I say needlework, I'm just trying to encompass more than cross-stitch. I know there's some people that just do cross-stitch, and of course it makes sense that they call themselves a cross-stitcher. But because I like different things, I don't know, years, I don't know how it's evolved, I say that I'm a needleworker. So let's talk about this. So what I was thinking, I could brainstorm in my head, but then I was like, well, what if I leave something out? Went to my bookshelf. Oh my God. When you pack up and you literally handle every book you own, you find so many that you're like, I want to read that again. I want to read it because I don't remember it at all. I've even pulled, when I was collecting what I needed to do for today's video, I pulled down something that I thought would be useful for the video. It's not, but I'm like, you know what? I'm leaving this out because I want to come back and look at it. I pulled out the good old Therese de Demalt, who is, there's a connection with her family and DMC. Okay, the Complete Encyclopedia of Needlework. It was originally published in 1840. No, she was born in 1846. 1884. And you can they've been doing like reproduction copies of it for, since the 19 whatevers. So what's in here though is like, well, is it a complete listing of all the types of needlework? Well, it helped me brainstorm. It reminded me of some things that I had forgotten about, but I won't claim it has everything because there's some things in here that I'm going to be showing you there's some things I'm going to be showing you that aren't in here. I also picked up this book, which this is a phenomenal book. I haven't looked recently, but when I was given it as a gift, but certainly when it first came out, when I was given it, for the thickness, for the in-depthness, it was an amazing price on Amazon. I do my best to kind of support the small businesses and support the whatevers, the local, but sometimes Amazon is what works. So this is from the Royal School of Needlework. They put out, is it off screen? Yeah, no, you can't see them from here. They did, past tense, put out these individual books, black work, gold work, crewel, and so on. This is putting all those books together in one place. So while I have the white work and black work, I only have those two. And so what I have in those books are in here, but so are the other chapters. And so opening this up and looking at their table of contents came up with a couple of other things that had not been on my list. So I'm just going to do that again. I hope it's still, yeah, it's still recording. So I'm just going to work my way through my list in somewhat random order, although there's a little bit of organization to it. So if I had to say, what do I do the most? It would be, at this point in my life, since being a designer, it would definitely be cross-stitch. But if I looked at over my whole stitching career, the counted canvas work, well, currently counted canvas is probably a close second, and it might be even that much closer if we looked, long range. What is counted canvas work? Well, you are working on canvas that, the same kind of canvas that painted canvases would be painted on, but you're not starting with something that's been painted. You're starting with an empty slate. And you could do the whole thing, and you could stitch on that in a cross stitch or even a 10 stitch, which is to say half of a cross stitch. But one of the cool things about counted canvas work is that you can bring in all kinds of stitches and all kinds of threads. So I've shown this before. I feel like I showed it recently. This is an example. So there I've worked on, this is 18 count canvas, and this happens to be canvas that has a gold thread running through it. And just very quickly, you can see there are different stitches. There are different types of threads. Some are shiny, I've got some metallics, I got some silky ones, I got some combo ones, I even have velvet. So you can certainly do counted canvas work with this kind of fun exploration of threads and stitches. But you don't have to make life that complicated for yourself if you're just giving something a try. And so I turn back to, I haven't done any of these recently, and it took these out. I'm like, got to put this on the list. I have 5 designs that I call, it might Works by ABC, that I call Introduction to Beginner Canvas Work Projects. They were specifically designed to be small, to only use, well, I stitched them only using 3 DMC threads. You could go wild and do something different, but it was the spirit of don't let the different thread kind of thing throw you off. And yes, it introduces you to different types of stitches. Nothing I think are too crazy. So I just brought up a couple of them to show you that counted canvas work can just be some fun stitches. And, sure, you might try something like this and say, hey, this is a lot of fun. I want to do more. And then you start exploring more about the threads and things that are available. So counted canvas work definitely has been something that I've loved doing because it allows that exploration. There's a whole category called white work. Now, white work is, I say category, I'm not kidding. So you could say, by definition, white work is anything that is white threads stitched on white fabric. Are there all kinds of exceptions to that? Sure. But basically, if you're going to call something white work, it is probably white threads on white fabric. A very traditional, common one is hardanger. Hardanger is a type of white work, but doesn't actually, now I'm saying that, it doesn't have to be, because you can certainly do hardanger in color. So now I'm rethinking this. I guess the hardanger is its own category, and sure, it fits under white work. But I've also, so this was something I was stitching like this past winter, so I know it's in some Flosstube videos, and I should have gotten the designer and the name, and I didn't, but I'll try to put those pieces of information down below. But I have some other white works to share with you. Everything I'm showing today, I don't think anything is super new, but some of this stuff you really would have had to have been with me from the very beginning to have seen it, beginning of my Flosstubes. So this is called Portuguese white work, and it is basically all or nearly all bullion knots. So those long squiggly things are called bullion, and Google it if you're curious. This kind of thing comes from, well, we're going to blame Mary Corbett at Needle and Thread. She has a great website, all kinds of information, and a really fascinating blog that I have followed for years. And her book reviews have been the reason why I have a lot of books on my shelf. And so she always has been a big supporter of Yvette Stanton. And I have a few of Yvette's. Yvette has more than these. She has an expertise in white work, although some of her, at least one of her books, is a type of needlework that definitely has color in it. But she goes and she learns about and researches. So she was at, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to pronounce that correctly. The G. In Portugal, okay? And so this was a style of embroidery, of white work. And so she went and she learned about it and studied it and did a book about it. Just to show you a couple others, I have not done anything Montmelic. Don't know the pronunciations. Sardinian knot embroidery from Toluda in Sardinia. So I love it. She combines history and with new techniques. So I own these others. I haven't. The only one I've done from her books has been this. Stuff all over. Has been this one, and it was a big one. I actually made a mistake. Do you see how this is 6 by 7? Yeah, it was supposed to be 6 by 6, and I just went full force in doing the cut work of it. And I work on a scroll frame, and it was rolled up. And at one point, I thought, And by the time I unrolled it, I realized I had already started another row, and it's cut. So I had to go for a 7th and kind of figure out how I was going to do the squares. So that's a type of white work. You could also say something like this. Not you say, you can. It is white work. This is the English white work sampler. The Needles Praise. And it has all kinds of white work techniques in there. Well, obviously there's something that looks like hardanger. I'm pretty sure there's some pulled thread parts. I started this, it's one of those things that I do hope I come back to at some point. The eyelet letters were a bear. And so it was like trying to force myself to do a couple of letters before I could work on anything else. Couple letters before I could work on anything else. It'll be one of those projects that I'll just sort of keep in the back of my mind when I'm in between other things like I'm designing and so on, and just need something to work on like that. So white work, big category, lots of possibilities. I'm just showing you a few. Another big category would be the things that are called embroidery. And that word alone can mean a lot of different things to different people. I picture embroidery as not counted work. Meaning, you use, there's one more white work thing I was going to show you. Schwamm white work, which is, again, one of those things I looked at and thought, oh my God, I'd love to do it. Have I done it yet? No, someday. Back to embroidery. So needle painting is a style of embroidery because I'm working on fabric, like go to Joann's and buy a quarter yard fabric, not needlework fabric, not cross stitch fabric, which has the holes and the lines and the pattern matches up to a gridded pattern. When you are doing embroidery work, you're not working off of a gridded pattern. You might be working, as in the case of this, of a design you draw on, pencil or whatever, and then you use what you've drawn on to guide you as to where to do things. So this is needle painting. And this is something I did somewhat recently, also in the winter, on my list to go back and do another one. You could also say, not you could, it is another project that I need to come back to. This would be an example of embroidery. You could even see there's still parts that I haven't done yet. It's different kinds of stitches, and this came from this book, Freestyle Embroidered Mandalas. I know I talked about this quite some time ago. I just need to get this one finished. We know. And then so like I said, embroidery really could have a different meaning to different people. I pulled out something and I was trying to decide, well, what category does it fall under? Again, I know I've shown this before. Albrecht Dürer was a contemporary of Da Vinci, and he Short version, a number of years ago, I saw these in a book, these knots. And in some places they get attributed to Da Vinci, but Da Vinci didn't do them. Durer did them. And I just thought they were so cool, and could I do something with it? And I figured out how I could stitch them. And what I did is basically trace the path using pencil or whatever I used, and then have covered the path with a couching technique, which is to say a thicker thread, which is actually a Kreinik braid, probably 4. I don't think that's 8. Yeah, 4. Laying across so I could get all the curves, and then using a very fine little thread called cord, which matches the color, to lay it out. Now, this, because of what I chose to use, is actually a counted fabric. This could have been something I used for a cross-stitch pattern. But I could do what I did here on a, non-cross-stitch fabric kind of thing. This was just what I used. So does this count as embroidery? I think so. But it goes to show that you can do whatever you want with a needle and thread. And sometimes it's a very clear distinction. I have just created hardanger. I have just done cross stitch. And sometimes it's not so easy to put a label on it. That's my example. Moving along. So those are some embroidery things. Blackwork. I have shown a number of blackwork pieces that I've done. There will be a new blackwork design coming out at the end of August. Blackwork. So if you're calling something white work, it should be done with white threads. But if you're calling something blackwork, it does not have to be done with black threads. Blackwork style, think if you're a cross stitcher and you do back stitching, think of it as only back stitching. Blackwork can be very geometrical. It can be not as geometrical. While I have some large pieces, none of them are hanging up here, what I just took out was this. Now this is technically an unfinished project. Not a black thread to be seen, but it is all with blackwork type filling stitches. And where you're seeing these empty areas, like in the center of the flowers, yeah, that's why it's not finished. It was a class, class by mail, workshop by mail through, I think it was EGA, A&G, one of those. And it was blackwork and pulled thread. And so while I wanted to do the pulled thread part, I kind of lost my excitement about it and always said, oh, I'll come back to it. And like other things, I haven't gone back to it yet, but take it out today and I'm like, ooh, gotta put this on the list. Gotta, all the other things I need to finish, this has got to be one of them. So blackwork doesn't have to be done in black threads. When I said it was geometrical, if you look at the filling stitches, you can see, again, it's all black, it's all like backwork stitching, if you're thinking in that mindset. That said, this is an example of one where the shading and the stitches give you the effect of the whole, you could see flower petals, and you could see flower petals that are different from one another, partially because of the shading changes. Other blackwork pieces that I've done have been purely geometrical, and that will make more sense at the end of the month when I share with you, or a few weeks when I share with you that new blackwork pattern. So we'll come back to that discussion. What else on my list? Gold work. So again, white work is done with white threads. Black work doesn't have to be done with black threads, but gold work, there's probably some gold threads involved. Gold work can, and often is, combined with, I don't know, I take back the word often. Gold work can be combined with silk. Why am I not thinking of the words correctly? With other thread, okay? Really the only real gold work piece I have done is this one. This was an in-person workshop I did with my local EGA, and pretty much the only thing I've done. They're a lovely group of ladies. I just haven't been a part of the group that much. But what this introduced me to is some of the very unique gold work threads. And I'm doing this about threads because some of them don't even look like thread the way we normally think of thread. So this design allowed me to explore what it was like to work with some of these different kinds of materials but yet the pink that you see and the green that you see was silk thread. So a lot of gold work can also have silk thread. And now that I'm saying this out loud, I know at least one of the books I have about gold work is like silk and gold embroidery or something like that. Anyway, I have a full kit with a gold work sampler kit on the to-do list. Maybe one of these days, one of these years. Now, this contains a lot of the specific types of gold work threads. There are some specific types of gold work, and here is my one little foray into that. This is called or Nuet. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing it correctly. I must have had it on I must have brought it to like a retreat for the brag table, just to, because I know people would look at it and say, "What's that?" Now, the thread I use for this, the gold thread that I use for this, I don't remember exactly what I used. I didn't use what, I kind of came up with this myself, meaning I had a little design that was actually a cross stitch design. This was years ago. This was not something the design is not something I designed, but I knew I wanted to try out this or Nuet thing. And so I found something small, and then or Nuet, you lay down a gold thread and then you couch over it in some places with a matching gold, so you really don't see it, and in other places with a color, silk. And so it is a very, very deliberate and slow type of gold work. It takes a long time. If you have the patience to do anything when it comes to stitching, it's just a matter of what you enjoy. And I wanted to try this out. Will I ever do another one? I don't know, but I'm glad I did something. So, a type of gold work. Then, this, which I did as part I briefly mentioned Nordic Needle a little bit ago. Nordic Needle used to have, for many years, but they haven't done it for many years since, these amazing retreats, like a once-a-year retreat, and it was focused on classes. It wasn't like the stitching retreats that I've become used to, that I've missed in 20 and 21, and I'm so looking forward to going to in 2022. Where the gist of it is to sit around, stitch and chat and meet people and so on. Nordic Needle, while you certainly had the opportunities to meet people, it was also very much about taking classes and learning new things. This was a class in Brazilian embroidery with stump work. So stump work is whenever you have things sticking out from the fabric, which is so not the technical way to describe it. But, I mean, can you see that dragon, I think it's a dragonfly, how it is. You stitch on a little separate piece of fabric, use some wire to give it the shape, you make your leaves, you cut out your leaves, and then you attach them here. And this is just one small little testing, playing around with stump work. There are people who do the most beautiful things. And some of the stump work, you need something stitched on the fabric. If you're making a bouquet of flowers, some of those flowers would be stitched on the fabric and other ones would have leaves coming out from the fabric. Now, it was combined with Brazilian embroidery. What makes it Brazilian embroidery? Well, as much as I can understand, it's basically about the threads. So I think I got this at Nordic Needle. Whatever, it doesn't matter. This is a full Brazilian embroidery pattern book. I mean, it's a book pattern, and I even bought the fabric pre-printed, so I didn't have to do any transferring myself. Oh, here, this might show it a little bit better. And Brazilian embroidery involves using these threads that are rayon, and if you've done anything with rayon threads, you are probably thinking, oh my God, how can you do that? But I imagine when you get into it, you get into it. I don't remember having too much difficulty with the threads here, but then again, I wasn't doing it that much. I don't think I knew at that time that people have a problem with rayon threads. I was just doing what I needed to do. There's different types of threads, different basically thicknesses, different sheen. You can see, maybe you can't see, that lavender there definitely has a higher sheen than like the green that's the stems of it. So at some point I had been all excited because I clearly bought the printed, the fabric is pre-printed, and I was going to get this started. I know I got stopped by how many threads I would need to get, and then it becomes, am I really going to jump into this wholeheartedly? But it's not like I got rid of it. It didn't go to the donation pile by any means. So see, someday. Then on my list, now buried under things. So silk gauze. Is silk gauze its own category? No. But sometimes, that's my opinion. It's my opinion. Silk gauze is basically using tiny, tiny, tiny canvas. So, and usually when you're using silk gauze, it is so small you really can't get a full X in. And that's why I said canvas instead of cross-stitch fabric, because the holes are larger than the fabric threads. When you think about cross-stitch fabric, the fabric threads are larger than the holes in general, okay? But silk gauze, and we're talking tiny stuff, like, I don't know how quote, big you can get, but like here, this piece was done on 40 count. So that's 40 stitches to an inch. Those are tent stitches. And that was it was just a cross stitch pattern. And instead of doing it, on 18 count Aida, 32 count linen, I was like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to do it on 40 count silk gauze. Now, this is not filled in at all. And the framer who did this, just made sure they had the right kind of match. Because it's so, maybe you can, it's a little different than having empty space on a cross stitch, because you could see through this. Like if there was like some, green mat board behind there would be green showing, which might be a really neat way to frame something. So silk gauze is working on this tiny fabric called silk gauze. It's not technically its own technique, at least I don't think of it that way. But this allows me to show a little bit of haul, which I almost never show because I never have. I recently ordered this from the Art of Petit Point. I'll put her contact information below. So I've shown you a big piece that I did that was on 40 count, but I was aware that there were higher counts than that. And so she sells on her website a sampler pack. So, there's your 40 count. Oh, these are not in the right order. Okay, there's your 48 count. There's your 56 count. All right, now I'm getting all off. Oh, here, I should be doing it here. Okay, there's your 40 count. There's your 48 count. There's your, 60 count. No, 56 count. There's your 60 count. There's your 68 count. Let's go for 72 count. How about 82? Let's do a 90 count. And the piece de resistance, 120 count. Now you look at this and you're like, there's no holes there, okay? I was just so intrigued by it. I was like, I have to do this. To be able to see that there's holes in this, I purchased a jeweler's loop, I think it's called, those little jeweler things. And with that, I could actually see the holes. The issue that comes up is how to get your needle in the hole you want. Because just think about that for a moment. When the fabric is larger, you have much more control of where your needle goes. Your hand movement, much more control. When it's this tiny, even if you can see the hole, you can't, it took me multiple times. So of course I needed to try this out. And I don't get this sticker back on. Where am I? See that? It's not going to focus. All right, so this is thread going in, but that little mark right there, that's 5 stitches. Just 10 stitches, just half across. There's no way you're doing a cross in this. The thread I used, which is way finer than even a sewing thread, is a thread that I have for bobbin lace, and it's the finest thread that I could find. I'm going to say sort of the finest that's available. There probably are exceptions to that, but certainly easily available. It's called YLI Silk 100. Will I do anything with this beyond testing it out? I don't know. But I am pleased to say that I have all these little pieces of this high count silk gauze, and we'll see what I do with it someday. So I know I'll get the questions about thread, which I already said. You probably also get the questions about needles very kindly. Again, I'll put this down below. She included needles. So that beading number 15 is what I used. I'm intrigued. She wrote 150 counts. I don't know if that was like just a miswriting of 120 or if she was serious and there's something else out there. I don't know. That's quite the Tour de Needlework. But as I was looking at my books, there's all kinds of other things. Here are 2 books, 2 counted thread techniques, Wessex Stitchery and Lagarteria Embroidery. They both have elements of cross stitch in them as well as other stitches. You know, somewhere along the line, I learned about each of these and was intrigued and haven't done anything with them. And there's probably other things on my shelf like that. But it's the kind of thing that interests me, you know, to try, to read about, to research, to look into, and then in many cases to actually do something a little different. I love the cross stitch. I love the things that I do more regularly, like counted canvas work and black work. But it is also kind of fun to explore difference, like I'm doing with that Swedish embroidery for a little bit this week. So this went on longer than I thought it would. I hope you were interested, if you're still around, just to see different kinds of things that I've done. Do I believe there's probably other things out there? Sure. But using those 2 books that I showed you at the beginning, the Royal School and the Therese Dumont books, was a good start anyway in thinking about the different things that I have tried, and that probably many of you have tried some of these, and for many of them they might be new, first time you're hearing of it. So I'm going to wrap this up for today. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate the comments and the likes and the subscriptions. We all know it makes a difference. You know, it helps you with your YouTube, you know, getting people just to find one another, just to find new people. So if you're new and you found me, thank you for coming. If you have been around, and thank you for noticing a notification and coming out to join me today. I'll be back in a few weeks, sooner rather than later, to share with you my Needlework Expo releases. Until then, take care. Bye.